Okay, Chairman, we are now live.
Thank you. Welcome to a virtual meeting of the North Applications Planning Committee at the London Borough of Hillingdon. This virtual meeting is also being broadcast simultaneously on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon London. I'm Councillor Eddie Lavery, the Chairman of the North Planning Committee and the Chairman of this meeting. Online housekeeping. Before we start, can I do the usual reminders, please? Please ensure all mobile phones are on silent. If you're wearing a headset, can you make sure the microphone is kept away from your mouth to avoid noise? Please mute your microphone when speaking and then unmute to speak. And only one person may speak at a time, and I will call you to speak. And I'm using the gallery view to see who's indicating. Can I just check attendance now, please? If you just indicate you're present when I call you. Councillor Higgins?
Yeah, here, present, Chairman.
Councillor Hagger?
Present, Chair.
Councillor Kaufman?
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Melvin?
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Morgan?
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Oswald?
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Dott?
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Singh?
Present, Chairman.
That's all councillors present. Officer team tonight, Planning Officer Zainab Haj Ismail.
Present.
Head of Planning, James Roger.
I'm present, Chairman.
Transport, Alan Tilley.
Present, Chairman. Present.
Thank you. Democratic Service Officer and Clerk Neil Fraser.
Present, Chairman.
And our legal advisor is Glenn Egan.
Present, Chairman.
Okay, in terms of technical meeting control, if any councillor leaves the virtual part of the meeting for a period of time, I will continue unless we're not quorum, which is 3 councillors. If you are not present for the whole of an item in line with our normal process, you will not be able to vote on that item. We have no apologies for absence tonight. Declarations of interest in matters becoming before tonight's meeting.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a non-pecuniary interest in item 6, which is 5-6 Firs Walk, Northwood, and I will not be participating during that discussions.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, sorry. Councillor Melvin, can you just elaborate on the reason for your non-pecuniary interest? Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was involved with residents in a previous application on this site.
Thank you. The agenda we are considering is the one that was published by the Head of Planning, and there are no changes to it. There was one additional plan circulated late on agenda item 9, which you all should have had. We have petitions tonight on items 6 to 10. Items 11 to 13 are also in part 1. So that's 6 to 13 in part 1. We have 4 enforcement reports in part 2. Once we get to the enforcement reports, the live stream will be disconnected.
Mr. Chairman, we missed the agenda item 3, which is to sign the minutes of the previous meeting.
True. Reading 2 sets of notes and I haven't done it. Thank you for that reminder. Agenda item 3, which is the signing of the minutes of the previous meeting. Can I take those as correct? Are there any corrections to those minutes?
Agreed.
Councillor Dott?
Yeah, just to let you know, I was present in the whole meeting. I heard the meeting, but because of some technical issue, I couldn't join the meeting, but I wasn't there.
But you were on audio, you were present?
Yes, I was. Thank you.
Neil, can you note that?
Will do, Chairman.
I think that's all the preliminaries done. I haven't skipped anything else. I will move to agenda item 6, 5 and 6 Firs Walk. Zainab?
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Item 6 relates to 5 and 6 Firs Walk. The application is for it's an outline application for the demolition of number 5 Firs Walk and to create an access. The application is seeking permission, outline consent for access only All other matters are reserved. I will take members through the presentation. So this area outlined in pink is numbers 5 and 6, number 5 Firs Walk, and it includes this part of the garden of number 6. So garden boundary is currently where I'm pointing. The proposal, there aren't any constraints related to this site. And this is the site location plan for the site. The proposal seeks to create an access of Foxdale coming into the east to serve plots 2 and 3. So houses 1, 2, and 3 will replace number 5 Firs Walk. Number 6 is to remain, and the access for plots 1 and number 6 Firs Walk will be taken through Firs Walk. So the application is seeking permission for this access, which has been considered by officers. The proposal is it does provide an additional 2 family dwelling houses, which is a material consideration in favour of the development. However, the weight afforded to it is limited because the council is able to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. So the application would result in a significant loss of a back garden land, and it compromises the local character of the area. The proposal includes really large projections and significant areas of hard standing to the front of the properties, to detriment of the local area. For the reasons outlined in the officer's report, this application is recommended for refusal on for design reasons and its layout, and because there isn't a section 106 to secure highway works. So on that basis, here are some pictures of the site. So this is the entrance along Firs Walk, and this is a view looking the other way. This is number 5 Firs Walk and the garden of number 5 Firs Walk. This is number 6 Firs Walk and the garden of number 6 Firs Walk. And this is the access which would continue through the back garden of number 6 off Foxdale to serve the properties that are being created. And this is just to give you an idea of what Foxdale currently looks like, which is a very different character to number 5 and number 6 Firs Walk. So the recommendation is for refusal, and I'm happy to take any questions, Chairman.
I'll hear the petitioner's presentation. Neil, could you share that with us, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be presenting a slide alongside the written submissions. Just bear with me while I present that now. Okay, so this is a statement submitted by the petitioner. Dear councillors and dear members of the Planning Committee, this petition reflects the concerns of many residents in the Dean Road area, 68 of whom signed the petition within a matter of days, showing their strong objection against the application. Additionally, 19 residents submitted individual letters objecting to the application, raising in total some 40 points of objection. This statement is supported by the Dean Road Residents Association, representing 120 households, as well as fully endorsed by the Northwood Residents Association. The Dean Road area has been officially recognised and designated as an area of outstanding local character. The application proposes the replacement of a large, attractive family home at number 5 Firs Walk with 3 houses squeezed in its place, which are too big for the site, and the concomitant loss of the large mature garden and most of that number 6 Firs Walk. We applaud the Planning Department for a thorough, balanced and well-constructed report regarding the application. The report proposes the development of rear gardens as a ground for refusal, as this is in direct contravention to policy DMH6, which states that there is a presumption against the loss of gardens due to the need to maintain local character, amenity space and biodiversity, unless in exceptional circumstances. These are not exceptional circumstances, rather the main criteria seems to be commercial planning gain. Whilst concerning a smaller site, the application is not dissimilar in access, layout and character to a previous application in 2018, which was rejected by the North Planning Committee and dismissed on appeal as it would fail to harmonise with the existing local and historic context of the surrounding area, which is section 3.3 of the report. The application claims to maintain the building line with adjacent houses in Foxdale and Firs Walk. This, however, is at odds with the layout plan, including the design and access statement section 5.3, with the houses set to the fore of existing houses, which can be seen in Appendix 1 here. The forward-facing garage spurs, the red dashed line, are also an alien feature owing to their depth, nearly as deep as the houses themselves. The plan also shows large crown roofs, the yellow line, which are not supported by DMHD1. This is a non-traditional roofing form and not sympathetic to the traditionally designed houses in the immediate locality. Approval of the application would therefore not just be in contravention of many of the London Borough of Hillingdon's planning policies, e.g. DHMB 11 and DHMB 14, but also contravene the decisions made by this committee against the previous application and by the inspector appointed on its appeal. As a second reason for refusal, the report identifies the lack of legal agreement for works required to connect the site to the end of Foxdale, which the application fails to mention, which can be seen on the Appendix 1 blue line. The legal status of the relevant section of Foxdale as a public highway is subject to a legal challenge by the owners of numbers 6, 8, 11 and 13 Foxdale. A letter before action was sent to the legal department of the council on 22nd November 2019, giving details of the challenge, which is found on the strong belief of the owners of those houses that the road between their properties is not part of the public highway. The effect of the challenge, if upheld, would be that there would be no public right-of-way over that section of Foxdale, which would therefore not provide access to the proposed development. The council has not yet responded to the letter for action, and arguments such as those set out in the first paragraph of the report, section 7.19, have not yet been subject to scrutiny, assessment and counter-argument. It is difficult to see how the report's suggestion that the status of Foxdale as a road is not relevant to the determination of this application can be justified. In addition to the challenge of the status of Foxdale as a highway, I would briefly point out that access is also restricted from Firs Walk, a privately owned narrow lane that is not a public highway. Its tight 90 degrees turn would render any construction traffic impossible, and any increase in traffic by the development's residents would neither be safe nor permitted by all of the owners of the road. Whilst access rights here are a private matter, access, suitability and safety are a planning consideration. DHMB 12. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you, Chairman. I'll hand back to you.
Neil, do you have any ward councillor comments or comments from the applicants on this one?
No, I do not, Chairman, no.
In that case, I will open it for debate. Who wants to take me forward? Councillor Oswald?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you for the presentation. For me, Chairman, it's in the summary on page 7 because it sums it up, doesn't it? That's what a summary does. And it's quite clear. And the third paragraph where it says the benefit of two additional family dwelling houses does not outweigh, and it goes on, that's enough. But in the fourth paragraph, it says about a second refusal reason. I think that it's a solid report, Chairman, and I think that there are enough reasons there to refuse the application. And I think that that's probably what we should do. So with that, Chairman, there'll probably be some other comments, but I'll move the officer's recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, I've got Councillor Higgins, followed by Councillor Morgan and Councillor Dott.
Thank you, Chairman. I would concur with my colleague and I would agree and second that proposal.
Okay, to save me duplicating, do the remaining speakers want to add anything to this, or were you just going to second the application? Councillor Morgan has stepped out. Councillor Dott, did you just want to second?
Yeah, I'm happy to support the officer recommendations.
In which case, nobody else is indicating no. In which case, we are proposed and seconded, and on that basis, I shall move this one to the vote. So the officer recommendation is to refuse the report. So I just need to know whether you are supporting that refusal. Councillor Hagger?
For Chairman.
Right. Councillor Kaufman?
For, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Melvin is sitting this one out. Councillor Morgan?
For.
Councillor Dott?
For, Chairman.
Councillor Singh?
For, Chairman.
Okay, and obviously Councillor Higgins and Councillor Oswald proposed and seconded. So that's 7 members voting for, and Councillor Melvin's not in this one, for the officer report. So that one is refused. Do you agree now?
I agree, Chairman.
Good. I will now move to item 7:15 Kew Ferry Road, Northwood. So now, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just bringing up. Okay, so item 7 relates to 15 Kew Ferry Road. Thank you, Chairman. This item is seeking retrospective planning permission for a single-storey rear extension and alterations to the front boundary wall with gates. So just taking you through the presentation, this is the site location plan. It's located on the western side of Kew Ferry Road. There aren't any site constraints. It's not designated. This is the location plan shown again, and this is the block plan outlining the extent of built footprint that has been added over various years. So this is this is the floor plan that was consented previously, and this is now the proposed ground floor plan. So the difference is, you can see here with the rear extension, which has now been consolidated. So this was the consented, these are the consented elevations. Making a note of this existing or consented rear elevation and the treatment here, and this is the proposed rear elevation treatment. So that's the key difference which has been implemented. This is the proposed treatment for the boundary wall. And I'm just going to take you through the pictures. So this is what has been built, and the difference really is the treatment of the doors and the addition of the roof light. But as members can probably see, there are extensions on either side of the property, and this is made evident in this bird's eye view plan. So there's already an extension on either side of the property. So in terms of its depth, it mirrors the depth of the neighbouring properties. There is no objection to, although it's larger than the recommended guidance in policy DMH1, the roof light is a roof light and it will not obscure anything, so there's no objection to that. To show you the changes to the front boundary, this is the context of Kew Ferry Road. This is the site itself, and you can see the front boundary treatments along, which are very green, and there's a sylvan setting. And this is looking back at down the other side of the road, and this is the application site here. So the green features really do form part of the character of the area. This is what the application site was before it was extended and before the changes were made. And this is what it's seeking permission for in terms of the front boundary treatment. So officers consider the proposed boundary treatment is inappropriate and recommend refusal on that basis. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
Neil, we have a petition and I think we have applicant comments as well on this one.
That's correct, Chairman. So I'll present now. We've actually received submissions from both the petitioner, the applicant, and a ward councillor, so I'll take each in turn. So starting with the submission from the petitioner. This house used to be a pleasant Edwardian house in keeping with its neighbours in Kew Ferry Road. The owner has, with his many extensions, turned the house into an eyesore with a huge brick wall and front extension, unsightly rear and side extensions, and oversized summer house in the back garden. It no longer conforms to policy DMHB 11, which states inter alia, it should be of good design, take account of established street patterns, building lines, and streetscape rhythm. Furthermore, policy DMHD1 states it should not have an adverse impact on the character and appearance and should appear subordinate to the main dwelling. The owner has a track record of ignoring planning approval, building something different, and then seeking retrospective planning and permission, which is something that should be actively discouraged. The applicant has already done this with the summer house, which is still subject to enforcement order. He built the front extension further out than approved, and now with this application, he has built a rear extension totally different from that approved. He did not seek approval before building that wall. It should be noted that the wall has had lanterns added on top since the officer submitted her report, and they add to the unsuitability. I agree with the officer's comments on the wall. It certainly is not of good design and does not fit in with the street scene. I disagree with the officer's view that the rear extension is acceptable. A building that is 10% higher than permitted is a major discrepancy. The approved extension was similar to that of neighbours and totally acceptable. The officer has not taken into account that neighbours have to look at the rear of the house from their gardens. The extension actually built without consent is poorly designed, too high, over-dominant, badly built, and is visible to all surrounding properties. A wall 3.75 metres high extends along the boundary of number 13, is totally out of character, results in loss of light and, contrary to the officer's opinion, is over-dominant. It is doubtful that planning approval would have been granted if the planning application for the extension had been submitted in this current format prior to its being built. There have been other variations to the originally approved plan, which are not included in this application and show the disregard the applicant has for the planning process. These include windows in the first floor of the side extension, a side wall that is higher than planned, and soil pipes in the wrong position. I agree with the officer's recommendation to refuse the application, but also request that the rear extension should be specifically included in the refusal, and the applicant should be ordered to build in accordance with the originally approved plans with enforcement instructed to ensure this happens. Photographs are attached. These are the photographs that the petitioner submitted. These were previously circulated to all members. Now brings me to the applicant's submission on this item. So, with reference to the rear extension, the report states, the extension is considered acceptable and would not be detrimental in character and appearance to the wider area. On balance, the proposed extension would comply with the principles of policies DMHB 11 and DMHB 1 of the Local Plan Part 2, Development Management Policies 2020. Based on the above, this statement focuses on the objection to the front wall, which is the subject of refused planning permission. Following receipt of the emailed report on June 10, 2020, to enable us to make a more informed response, a call was made to the case officer on Thursday, June 11th, to clarify the specifics of the refusal and to understand the informatives as they are written in jargon difficult for a layman to interpret. To date, the case officer has not returned the call, so this statement is based on our understanding of the report. 1. Front wall detail is completely out of character with the front boundary treatments, and there we refer to pictures 1, 2, and 3, so I'll bring those up now. Which show two properties, each one house away on either side of ours, both with similar front boundary treatments. The gate at number 19 is similar in ornamentation, though much taller than our gate. The wall and railings at number 11 are substantially similar to our wall. Additionally, properties at numbers 9, 11, 19, 37 to 39, 54, 59, and 70 Cufley Road have substantially similar frontages. Point 2. It is presumed that two sliding vertical rail gate openings and two gated vehicular accesses are proposed. Both statements are incorrect. While there are two gates, only the gate to the driveway is the sliding gate, as pointed out to the planning officer during inspection. The second gate was installed to provide a balanced aesthetic and has a door-style opening which is aligned to the side pathway to enable us to put out the garbage. This is picture 4, which shows the gate opening and pathway to the side gate. There is no intent to have a second driveway, and since the gate was installed, cars have continued to park in front of it, so clearly it is not a deterrent to parking. Prior to redevelopment, as noted in the report, the driveway had openings to both sides, which is more of an inference of a second driveway than the current gate represents. Point 3, lack of soft landscaping. There has been provision made for soft landscaping with a 5 by 5 meter central square area, 1 meter width, the full length of the driveway on both sides, and a semicircular area around the front bay windows. This is an increase over the original landscaping. We are consulting with the landscaper to ensure that these areas are in keeping with the general character and street scene, and this can be seen on picture 5. Point 4. Design will significantly erode and detract from the verdant character and appearance of the street scene. We disagree with this statement, reasons being, a number of the neighbours walking by have complimented us on the look of the property. The design was done having reviewed several properties on the street and is substantially in keeping with those properties as noted in points 1, 2 and 3 above. Only 3 of 14 neighbours raised an objection. Point 5, informative item 2. We have not received any of the items detailed in this informative, and in fact, we feel that the planning officers have neither been proactive nor positive in their engagement with us. Point 6 has been redacted in accordance with the legal advice. Point 7, part of a neighbouring property has been damaged with legal action pending. No such legal action is pending. Number 17 asserted that we had damaged the wall of the joint shed. Based on a surveyor report by local London surveyors, the shed damage was in fact caused by part of the roof of number 7's conservatory extension resting on the shed. We fixed this damage at our expense. However, there is concern that this heavy glass structure, erected to rest on the joint shed without our consent, may cause further damage. And point 8, this proposal is impacting the sale of neighbouring properties. The improvements in our property has substantially increased the value of our property and by extension, the neighbouring properties. That concludes the submission by the applicant. We do have some comments from Councillor Richard Lewis, the Ward Councillor for Northwood, who states, I support the recommendation for refusal for the works to the front of the property. I am nevertheless still very concerned over the over-high lantern roof, which appears to me to be over-dominant and should be reduced in height. Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to stop sharing now. It's back over to you.
Okay, before I ask members to come in on this one, Sanab, could you just provide us with some commentary on the photographs supplied by the applicant, which appear to show relatively similar boundary treatments on a number of adjacent properties?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to comment on those, where they do exist, the walls are quite low, and where there are gates and that treatment has been implemented, that's not something that we would actively encourage, and we want to see replicated along Kew Ferry Road, which is by and large, as I've shown you in the picture that we have before us, or had before us, it's quite a verdant character and quite a verdant street. So on that basis, where alterations have been made, they're not something we would actively want to encourage and replicate. If anything, it shows us what we want to avoid.
Thank you.
We've lost your microphone, Eddie.
Sorry, Councillor Higgins. Sorry, I did call you. Councillor Higgins, followed by Councillor Melvin, then Councillor Morgan.
Yes, this is I would call it a dog's dinner. I have real problems with this, and I do want some clarity from officers on this, because I think we should be refusing both parts, the rear and the front. It is totally unkeeping, and there was a photo from the petitioner that actually showed it. The photo from the petitioner showed it as for what it is, whereas the photo that officers took did make it look quite sympathetic. If it looked at that angle, you wouldn't really notice it, but when you saw it from the side, it is very noticeable. But I'm concerned about having a report where we're saying we're going to refuse this part of it, but we're not taking any action on that part. And I'd rather that, if James can come in and just tell me that, I'd rather that we did the whole thing and say refuse it and let him put another application in representative for the back. I think that would be safer for us as a committee. But if I would wait for officers' thing, and on that note, I will propose this as well. So that's
let me bring James in, because he has indicated.
Yeah, the view of officers is quite simply that we think the front boundary treatments cause significant harm to the street scene, and I think I don't agree with what the applicant's saying, because effectively I think they're just picking on some slight bits of urbanisation, whereas their proposal completely urbanises the frontage and therefore is far more incongruous than anything else in the street scene. So in your officer's opinion, the front boundary treatments cause significant harm to the street scene, whereas to the rear, yes, there is a large roof lantern, but we have quite often allowed single-storey rear extensions with roof lanterns. And then when we look at the harm caused by the roof lantern, It's not, if one puts aside the roof lantern, the extension itself is not oversized. It's in line with our normal parameters. There are other extensions on the street scene. It is only single story. So the level of harm caused by the roof lantern is actually quite small in my professional opinion. And therefore, were we to refuse it, I think we'd have difficulty defending it at appeal. Whereas I have completely contrasting view in terms of the front boundary treatments, which I think cause significant harm. And I'd hope we'd be able to robustly defend those at appeal. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Higgins, do you want to come back?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that, James, but I just want to know why we didn't separate it. Really, that was my concern.
I mean, unfortunately, this was a retrospective application. I know that the applicant said that officers hadn't been proactive, but I had to bite my tongue at this point because when the government encourages planning authorities to be proactive, it's referring to pre-application planning guidance. It's not. I don't think the guidance is intended for this type of situation where we're having to deal with retrospective applications.
Well,
so you have to chase applicants to put in retrospective planning permissions, and there is a long planning history on this site. So I'd have difficulty agreeing with any statement that the applicant wasn't familiar with the planning system.
Yes, and the other point I was going to pick up with you, James, was that he doesn't understand informative, but he seems to understand everything else, and throwing bees and various things at us. But anyway, on that note, thank you very much. Anyway,
thank you, Councillor Higgins. Councillor Melvin.
No, well, I was just going to concur with what Councillor Higgins was saying. So he's said it all, and James has answered. But just one little point, which I got a bit confused. The photographs from the applicant, they were for 15 Q3, weren't they? Because they had 48 Murray Road on the top. And I was a bit confused.
They're definitely not Murray Road.
Oh, right. No, that's fine. I thought it was a bit odd, but there you go. Thank you. And I'm quite happy to second the officer's recommendation.
In that case, I'll just move to Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Generally, I've got no issues in supporting the officer's recommendation. However, looking at the presentation, the first photograph that's shown immediately after the rear extension, where we're looking down Kew Ferry Road, there does appear to be a number of houses with just a brick wall and iron fencing on it. So are we sure that this will actually stand up should the applicant appeal?
I did ask Zanab for a comment earlier on that. James, would you just confirm you're confident that this would?
Yeah. So what we're dealing with here is in effect a very urban proposal in terms of the hard standing, the brick wall, the railings, the complete frontage. What I think needs to be taken into account is the other properties have more of a mixture of brick and soft landscaping. So it's because this one is so urban in its appearance and in effect out of keeping that I am quite comfortable we should be able to defend the refusal of that appeal.
Zanab, do you want to come back?
Just to add to that, also the colour of the brick. The other properties have a low wall and a brown brick. This is a very red brick, which is completely uncontextual in this area.
Thank you for that clarification. Nobody else is indicating that I can see. We are proposed and seconded on this one, so I'm going to take it to the vote unless I see any hands, and I don't. Councillor Hagger?
For, Chairman.
Councillor Kaufman?
For, Chairman.
Councillor Morgan?
For.
Councillor Oswald?
Sorry, for.
Councillor Dott?
For, Chairman.
And Councillor Singh?
For, Chairman.
So that's all councillors voting for the officer report to refuse this application. Do you concur, Neil?
Sorry, Chairman. Did we have Councillor Melvin register a vote there? Sorry.
We did, yeah.
In that case, yes, I concur.
Yep. In that case, that one's refused. I now move to agenda item 8, 48 Murray Road, Northwood.
Thank you, Chairman. So item agenda 8 is 48 Murray Road in Northwood. The application relates to, it seeks full planning permission for the demolition of an existing single-storey bungalow and the erection of a terrace of 3 4-bedroom dwelling houses and 1 bedroom detached dwelling house with amenity space, car parking and landscaping. I will be covering all the planning matters in this presentation, and the highways officer will talk through matters relating to access and highways. So I'm just going to run you through the proposal. This is the location plan. Outlined in pink is the application site. This is the single-storey bungalow, and its access is taken from Murray Road, and this access measures between 80 and 90 metres. Lingfield Close is situated to the northeast, and to the northwest is a series of garages. This is Craigmore Court, and there are garages on the southern boundary of the site, and there are some properties along here with dense screening. So in terms of constraints, this is covered by a car parking management area in terms of the surrounding roads, but the site itself does not have any constraints. This is the block plan. This is the existing site plan, which sets out the vegetation along the boundary and the existing site. And this is the proposed block plan. So there is the 1 detached dwelling house with its car parking spaces and a terrace of 3 houses. You will note from the plans as I take you through, so that there are no windows along the flank elevation on the south and no windows along here. There is a side facing dormer along here, but this is proposed to be frosted glass, and it'll become clear in my presentation. So this is the front entrance. The applicant proposes to place the bin store so it can be collected from Murray Road, 12 metres from the entrance along Murray Road. This is showing the treatment of the bin store and showing us the shrubbery that they're seeking to retain at the entrance. It's a sloping site, so it's like slopes upwards, and there is a vehicle gate, electronic gate at the entrance of the site. So this is the existing ground floor plan for the site and the proposed ground floor plan showing the layouts. The amenity spaces are located to the backs of the houses, and their entrances are within this courtyard area. And there's the amenity space for the 4th house D. So the first floor plan, you can see there are no windows on either side. The windows are looking over the rear gardens, and there are no windows along this elevation at first floor level. The windows are positioned to the north and to the south, looking over the lane. This is the second floor plan, so it comprises a bedroom and a study. And this window here will be frosted glass. The other windows are facing away from, so there's no overlooking issues by this proposal. The roof plan, existing elevations, is proposed elevations. These balconies are situated, this is taken from within the courtyard, so they're only overlooking the courtyard. This is the rear elevation. Again, they're all facing out towards the rear gardens, so there's no overlooking issues there. And this is a section showing the treatment along House D. So this is taken from this area here. And it shows it's going to be treated with metal railings with shrubbery behind to provide House D with some privacy. This is an elevation D. More elevations. And this is a study of the boundary treatment they're proposing. They're looking to provide a combination of closed boarded timber fences, metal railings, and resin-bound treatment as you approach the houses. This is some of the architectural detailing they're proposing. And here's a bird's eye view of the site. This is the lane leading up to the site as it is at the moment. This is the entrance of the site. This is the garden of the bungalow. And the entrance again. And this is a view from Lingfield Close, which shows it's quite densely vegetated along its boundary. The application is recommended for approval for the various reasons set out in the officer's report. And now I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Alan Tilley, to talk through Highways Matters, Chair. There isn't, before I go, there is an addendum on this item. And the addendum makes amendments to Condition 6, which is the landscaping condition for clarity. It deletes Condition 13, which wasn't considered necessary for this site. It clarifies that House D, what was meant to be said is that there was an obscurely glazed window looking over Leaf Close, so there was no privacy issues there. There is a condition ensuring there's a manual override for the electric gate in the future. And it makes note of the comments from the Northwood Residents Association, and it's circulating the petition received from Leaf Close residents. Okay, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Zanab. Thank you, Chairman. Murray Road is a wide road and has footways on either side. I mention that because you will notice that access to the proposal site is from a driveway. Vehicles, therefore, entering and leaving the driveway have good visibility. The driveway would have 2 passing places for vehicles. In the application information that's been received, they've provided what you might call illustrative plans to make myself and committee very sure that the 2 passing places can be achieved. There's a condition included asking for proper technical drawings that we can check thoroughly to make sure that the dimensions can be achieved and 2 vehicles can pass, because after all, the driveway is 90 meters, 80 to 90 meters long. Another issue with this application that committee may wish to consider is the location of the refuse collection point. That would be situated 12 metres from Murray Road, which is just beyond the council's standard collection distance for council operatives of 10 metres. That might, however, a proposal to overcome that would be for 3 of the dwellings that back onto Lingfield Close to have rear doors to their properties so that their refuse could be collected from Lingfield Close. Now, of course, that would still remain one property having the refuse collected from the collection point just 12 metres back from Murray Road, but it should be pointed out that that is the case as existing with the one bungalow that's already on site. I'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Neil, could you now give us the petitioner's statement on this one, together with any others that you've got? I know there's a ward councillor comment as well.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is the firstly, this is the submission from the petitioner in relating to the 48 Murray Road application. I'll just bring up the first picture here. We ask that the committee consider the exclusion of House D from the proposed scheme for the reasons listed below. Point 1. The officer's report agrees, point 7.01, that this site would not be considered previously developed land and would technically be development on garden land. Accordingly, this development does not comply with DMH6 as it is not more intimate in scale and mass or lower than frontage properties. Proposed development is around 9 metres in height with habitable roof floor and with dormer windows, while adjoining frontage properties are no more than 2 stories without habitable roof spaces. Additionally, most trees have not been retained or re-provided. Over 10 trees on the development site are to be removed and replaced with three small trees within the residential development. Only trees and shrubs along access road have been retained. Point 2. Calculations of the development area show that only about 36% of site is retained as garden area, with most of the site to be built up or hard landscaped. This is in total contrast to existing conditions and would be uncharacteristic for most parts of Northwood outside of town centre locations. Significant loss of existing mature garden would appear at odds with prevailing character of the surrounding area and create a cramped form of development. Wildlife habitat has not been assessed. The proposed development goes against the conditions of policy DMH6. Second picture. Point 3. The officer's report does not mention the fact that new homes on the 48 Murray Road site would be on a raised site approximately 3 metres higher than Leaf Close, so they would not only be overbearing in character, but proposed House D would be directly overlooking bedroom windows of 27 to 33 Leaf Close and other habitable rooms of 34 to 40 Leaf Close from the windows on its side southwest elevation. Point 4. Leaf Close flats are open plan, designed as upside-down homes, with bedrooms on lower levels and sitting rooms on top, and wall-to-wall windows, which exacerbates the overlooking issue, especially as every tree along this boundary development site is proposed to be removed. The homes of 27 to 40 Leaf Close will in fact be overlooked by House D. There will also be mutual overlooking from these flats into House D, even with the 21-metre separation distance maintained as the intervening foliage is removed. This would be of detriment to quality of life for residents of these maisonettes and the new House D. Point 5. The arboricultural plan has been already queried by us in the original petition documents, as it is inconsistent on the location of trees and foliage at the boundary between 48 Murray Road and Leaf Close. There is a significant impact to this inconsistency as all trees within Leaf Close are mature and have tree protection orders. The plan deliberately does not include an assessment of trees directly adjacent to the location of House D, which has been positioned particularly close to the boundary with Leaf Close. These protected trees are very likely to be adversely affected by any excavations for the construction of House D or the new access road. Point 6. While impact on the Murray Road streetscape may not be detrimental, it certainly would be for the residents of Leaf Close and Lingfield Close. Both with private internal roads, the impact on these internal roads has sadly not been assessed. A full impact assessment may support our argument against House D inclusion in the plan. Point 7. There are many long-term council tenants in the neighbouring properties, many of whom are elderly, who may not have the means to relocate if their lives are negatively impacted by this development, and we believe their rights should also be considered when making a decision. Leaf Close properties are particularly affected being in a depressed location as compared to the development site. In conclusion, we feel the development would have an overbearing impact. The loss of foliage, natural screening from trees, would cause a loss of existing amenities and eventually devalue the quality of life and property values in the neighbourhood. London Borough of Hillingdon are free holders of these plots of land, and we ask the committee to not approve this planning application in the current form. We ask the committee to consider these conditions: A. Possible exclusion of House D from the scheme, and B. For House D to be redesigned as a 2-storey house and to eliminate the windows on its south elevation entirely so as not to disadvantage current occupants. We then have a submission from the applicant. This representation has been prepared by Savills, who act as planning advisor to the applicant here in respect of 48 Murray Road, in support of a planning application to deliver 4 family houses with generous landscape gardens on a sustainable and underutilised residential site. The proposed development seeks to meet the clear and substantial borough-wide requirement and need for far larger family-sized homes. We'd firstly like to thank the planning officers for their highly professional and well-considered report for this application. We hope that members will agree with the recommendation and decide to grant planning permission. As set out in the Council's report, the redevelopment of the site is logical and considered acceptable in principle. The proposed design is considered appropriate within the site's context, and the proposal would not have an adverse impact on the amenity of neighbouring properties or the local highways network. The Council's tree and landscape officer and highways engineer have both reviewed the proposals and confirmed that they have no objections or concerns, subject to conditions which are agreed and supported by the applicant. The proposals has been designed and developed following the Council's pre-application advice and continued consultation throughout the application to ensure the application delivers high-quality housing whilst respecting neighbouring properties. The proposals were also revised in agreement with representatives from both Craigmore Court and Mansion House, following discussions and a site visit meeting with them. The design, scale, layout and separate distances within the site and with neighbouring properties have all been developed to comply with the Council's pre-application advice and adopted policies and guidance. As considered by the Council officers, the development would have no adverse effect on neighbouring properties and is considered acceptable in design terms. The development protects and does not harm any Category A or B trees based on expert arboricultural consultancy input. Whilst the proposals remove 5 lower quality trees, the proposed illustrative landscaping scheme seeks to replace those with new specimen trees and supplemental planting, which is to be controlled by planning condition. The development will result in an increase in trees on the site. The Council's assessment confirms the proposals retain and safeguard the sylvan character and appearance of the area. The highways and refuse design and operations have been developed with expert transport and highways consultants and reviewed by the Council's highway engineer. Subject to planning conditions, as mentioned earlier, these aspects are all considered to be acceptable and the development will not result in any highway safety concerns. The proposed development being considered by members this evening is compliant with local and national planning policies in all respects and has been submitted with care and attention to the site's context and neighbours. This application has been informed by and has been addressed both pre-application engagement with the Council as well as neighbouring properties Craigmore Court and Mansion House. Thank you. And to conclude, we also have comments from Councillor Richard Lewis, the Ward Councillor here, who says, I consider this development to be overbearing and out of character with the rest of the street scene. Additionally, there are concerns as to whether Lingfield Close will be able to cope with the extra volume of cars. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you. I have indications at the moment from Councillor Morgan and Councillor Dott. I haven't seen any other. Councillor Higgins and Councillor Haggart. Oh, everyone. I think everyone's going to indicate in a minute. Right, Councillor Morgan, you kick this one off, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I've got grave concerns on this application. First of all, we're looking at, quote, 80 to 90 metre long drive. So, first of all, we have the refuse bins 12 metres from Murray Road. So we're expecting residents to walk their rubbish 70 to 80 metres, chucking it down with rain or blowing a gale, whatever it may be. Surely that can't be right that we're expecting our residents to walk such distances in poor weather. The length of the drive also causes issues because if you've got a car who's coming down one way, and you've got a car waiting in Murray Road, he's got to sit out blocking Murray Road or causing an obstruction in Murray Road whilst the vehicle from the houses come out. It was also mentioned that we could lose the vegetation on Lingfield Close. Again, this is a green area. We had one building on this green space. We're now proposing to remove the majority of vegetation to have 4 small houses. And whilst the agenda says it's 2-storey, actually with the development into the roof space, it's actually a 3-storey. So we've got 4 3-storey buildings, not for two-storey buildings. So as it stands, Mr. Chairman, I'm actually against this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. I shall move on to others. We'll see where we come back to. Councillor Dott.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a comment in terms of objections raised by the residents during the consultation period. They addressed appropriately in paragraph 7.08 by the officers. So I have no problem to support this officer's recommendation for this property. Thank you.
Okay, I move on to Councillor Hagger.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I couldn't get my mouse working. I've got very serious reservations about this. Two questions I'd just like to ask. One is from officers. I picked up about the raised site, and as the site is raised, it could be overlooking. Can I just clarify that, please, with officers, that we've taken that into account? And the second one is about trying to look through to find some reasons in this application, and one of them is the flood as well. Now it says there we haven't had the water management report yet either, so I just wanted to question that. And thirdly, you know, that the condition, there definitely has to be a condition in there that the three houses should collect from Lingfield, is it? Lingfield? So three things there. Can officers answer that for me, please, Chair?
Okay, what I'll do, Councillor Hagger, if I just collate this for a minute and then we'll get officers to take one go round at this, because I think we're all coming to the similar issues. Councillor Higgins, you wanted to come in?
Thank you, Chairman. A lot's been said what I agree. I mean, there's the issue with the greenery, the trees, the refuse list. And I actually do agree with the, I mean, let's be realistic. You know, something's going to be put on this site, and I do agree with the petitioner. I think that other, if it was only 3 rather than the 4, I think we would really struggle here to find it. I would think it would be acceptable, to be quite honest. It's just that one more. It's higher, as Councillor Morgan said. It's 3 stories. There is going to be an issue of overlooking the reduction in the trees. And what worries me is that the planning officer said that, look, it's all this lovely greenery, so it can't be seen. And then we're getting the traffic officer saying, well, you can put the rubbish out that way. So there's a contradiction there, which I'm not quite happy with. And that's not a criticism of officers. I'm just saying it's something that's been said. So I will put this, I would refuse this. I can't see, it's overdevelopment of site. And there is the driveway issue is another concern to me, because the traffic officer is saying we're waiting for them to come back to show us whether they can put 2 cars can pass. Well, actually, this is like the horse before the cart, isn't it? We really need this now to say, yes, it does happen. We can do it before we as a committee can say, yeah, well, we agree with that. Those are my comments. So I'll let those.
Thank you, Councillor Higgins, for your contribution. Councillor Melvin.
Yeah, I mean, I've got everything. Most of what I was going to say has already been said, obviously, but I have grave concern. I know the site, and I know that driveway is narrow, very narrow. Now, if they're saying they're going to put a bypass in, then that means they've got to take away the vegetation that they're saying they're going to leave there. So there's a contradiction there. And I just feel that it's a total overdevelopment of that site. Because the other issue is, of course, if they're going to put the 3 houses are going to put their rubbish out on the Leaf Close side, then they're going to be taking away all the vegetation there as well. So what we're happening here is it's just being left as an open site. It's raised and it will overlook. It also overlooks the house. The one house will overlook a children's playing site. So I'm not happy with this at all. So I'm happy. I want to refuse it. Thank you.
Okay. Before I go back to officers for the comment, Councillor Oswald's now indicated, so I'll take you as well, and then I'll go back to officers some comments on.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, I think there are definitely some issues with this. I mean, the petitioner said to take out property D. Well, we can't do that because the report that's in front of us is for 4 new buildings, not 3. So the decision would have to be taken on 4. Now, looking through the report this morning, it seems to me that it's in policy. But because of some of the issues that have been raised tonight, Chairman, I'm just wondering, I am a little bit concerned about the refuse, as I think it was Councillor Morgan said, about whatever the weather's like, who wants to walk, you know, that could be difficult. We might end up with rubbish all over the place. I'm just wondering, Chairman, if we refuse this, whether or not our refusal would hold up at an appeal, and because of what the report says. So what I'm thinking, Chairman, is I don't know what you think about this, is why don't we defer this and try and get some more detail or get some of this tidied up, like the report from the water that Councillor Hagger raised, because we haven't got a report on that, and that could be an issue. But because of the other issues, I'm just wondering whether or not it would be better for us to defer this for further information and maybe get the whole thing tidied up rather than refuse it, go to appeal and we lose it on appeal. Thank you, Chairman.
Well, I'm going to take this 2 ways round. And I'm going to come back to you in a minute on some of the detail. But could I just bring James in for a second on the sustainability of potential refusal, and would a deferral work better in this case or not?
Well, in terms of sorry, this is a difficult one because there's lots of different comments being said that could take us in different directions on this one. I'm getting a sense that the middle ground, in effect, is that the problem dwelling is the one closest to Leaf Close. Now, on the plans, that's just under 15 metres separation from the other 3 new dwellings. Now, what I'd say at this point is what we normally look at is that the distance between new dwellings and existing dwellings is no closer than 15 metres. So if members were comfortable moving the dwelling that the Leaf Close residents are concerned with slightly closer to the other 3 new dwellings, so it's not getting closer to any existing residents, because there seems to be a gap of a car's width to the side of the dwelling and the access road. So you could actually move the 4th dwelling 2.5 metres away from the boundary with the Leaf Close residents. I know the point that Zanab was going to make is that there is no clear glazing above ground floor level facing the Leaf Close residents, but obviously, being devil's advocate, the dormer for the bathroom, even though it's obscure glaze, it's quite a big structure. So we could maybe work with the applicant on whether, I heard committee reference whether the dwellings are 3 or 2 stories, and perhaps that one needs to be 2 stories. So there is things that we could do if it was deferred, but I wouldn't want to necessarily defer it and then come back if members are still going to have any fundamental concerns with the scheme. So there are things we could do that may placate for the residents of Leaf Close. And in terms of the highways, Alan and I have spoken about this, and there is a big difference between this and 1 or 2 other schemes we've dealt with long accesses, because there is the passing bay. And I think the point Alan was making is he'd perhaps rather see a very, very detailed plan. And so it wouldn't be amiss if members do wish to defer to get that plan if they want to have Alan saying he's 100% comfortable with the scheme. In terms of the refuse, there's actually only 2 trees on the boundary with Lingfield Close. So we were just thinking of a garden gate. We're not thinking of a big opening onto Lingfield Close. It's just a sort of 1 metre garden gate for someone to take their refuse out with a pathway to the end of the garden. So I think I'm quite comfortable that those openings could be created without having an adverse impact on the verdant sort of character of or aspect of Lingfield Close. But I can't really argue against Councillor Oswald's suggestions. But I think the important point is if we do defer, our members are going to be comfortable approving it when it comes back along the lines I've just mentioned, Chairman.
Thank you, James. That's, as usual, very helpful to us. Zanab, can I bring you in now?
Yes, I will talk through some of the detail. Would you like me to? I'm going to reshare the presentation, which might help clarify aspects.
Yeah, whatever helps you clarify your commentary.
Yes, so just taking you back to the presentation. So this is the site. There is the site itself. This is where the petition items have come from. This is the tree cover between the application site and the neighbouring properties. The Leaf Close residents are correct. These are all subject to a TPO. And the arboricultural officer, the tree officer, I spoke to him in quite some detail yesterday about the proposal, and he has clarified that he's satisfied there won't be an impact on these trees. This is a special tree and this is a category A tree, but they're not subject to a TPO. Both trees are remaining. The arboricultural impact assessment did take into account both on-site and off-site trees, and the recommendation was made on that basis, but members will see that this has quite a substantial sort of cover, and that will remain. So if I just take you back to the plans itself. This is tree 14. So this area is shown with a dining table outside. That's probably not going to happen because it's going to be under shade a lot of the time. The officer is satisfied that the substantial tree number 19 won't be affected by the proposal, and we can also show you that the bin, there is scope for the gates to be positioned on Lingfield Close without affecting existing tree cover around there for each site. As James said, it does need to be just a small gate. It doesn't need to be a huge opening. On the matter of privacy affecting the Leaf Close residents, as I explained, this is going to be obscurely glazed. There are no other windows. If I move back to the first floor plan, you'll see that it's just a flank elevation, so there are no other windows. So there would not be any overlooking along here. And you can see the trees are shown on the boundary. There is a condition relating to tree protection. So we would make sure before any works began, there were detailed plans showing us how these, especially 19, 14, and all the trees along this boundary would be protected. If I just run up this plan of the accessway, you'll see here there are passing places, but it is a compromise between losing existing hedging along the access route and providing these parking spaces. I don't think the highways officer felt that was okay. So on that basis, Alan can answer any other questions about those passing places. With regards to the point on flooding, this isn't in a flood water management. It's not in an identified flood risk area, and it's not an area that suffers from surface water management issues either. So before any works begin, for completeness, we can condition flooding matters and get a report to confirm this. But as it stands, there are no flooding issues on this site that we can anticipate. So that's not we don't think that would be an issue at this site. So I think that covers the points. There are, as I've explained already, there are no windows along this elevation or the northern elevation, and the only window is within the roof slope, and it's obscurely glazed. So we don't, and there is a 21 meter. I know that the cover isn't shown, but as I've already shown you, there's dense screening along here, and there's also a 21 meter separation distance. The report doesn't talk extensively about the height differences, but even taking into account those height differences, officers considered it wasn't going to have an adverse impact on the amenities of residents along Leaf Close or result in overshadowing and overdominance. So if you have any other questions or want to...
Can I just come back on the in the petitioner's slides, there was a slide showing the relationship between, or their version of the relationship between property D and Leaf Close and significant overlooking. Now, have officers actually considered the height difference? Because it's not referenced in the report at all.
So we don't have a section that clearly shows that height difference, but we have considered the height difference, and the height of the property is not. It's going to be sort of along the typical 9 meter height, which is quite typical for this type of area, given the distances between the residents of Leaf Close. Given the dense vegetation, as I'll go back to that slide that shows you how much screening there is, notwithstanding the fact that there would be an increase in height to compare to what is there at the moment, it is not that substantial that we would be able to defend a reason for refusal, if that's where you're going with this. On the basis of overshadowing or overdominance and overlooking, because this is where House D will sit, and it's over 21 meters between the properties, and it's densely screened. I think you're on mute.
Eddie, you're on mute.
Come off mute. Janab, is that a conclusion of your comments?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps you could unshare the presentation now for a moment, because then I can see everybody. So we have a number of suggestions on this one. The officer is coming back suggesting that we're struggling to refuse. The head of planning is accepting that this would benefit from some tidying up. But if we defer, if we're going to refuse, we may as well almost refuse tonight and move it on. If we're going to defer, you're almost implying that if you get the stuff you're after and you're satisfied with it, you then approve it. Somebody want to come back at me with a commentary? Councillor Higgins.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just my view is this the overlooking that the officer said about. I don't really have a problem with that building. I have the problem with the building with the tree that's number 14 on the root. Is the root system there? I mean, if you look at the canopy of that tree, it's so huge that those roots are obviously the house has been there and the tree's grown while the original house is there, but those roots will be underneath that house. So when you start then building foundations, you are going to damage those roots. And that's the problem for me, is that house. If that house wasn't there, I don't think I'd have any problem with approving this. It's like trying to fit that extra one in just to maximize profit on it. And I have nothing against people making money. Trust me, I don't. But that property is just too close. If you took that away, it would open up the space better there, and it would be so. I can't say that if I get all of these other things that I would go with a deferral on this. I think that property there is going to be, when they build it, will damage the root system of that tree. and that's my opinion. And I just think it's overdevelopment on the site, and that's the best I can come up with, I think, at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Higgins. That's fine. Councillor Morgan, you indicated.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I meant to ask the officers, how wide is that drive? Could emergency vehicles get down there should the case arise, fire brigade or whatever may be required?
Good question. Alan, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The driveway is 6.1 metres wide, which is sufficiently wide for a fire appliance to pass. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Alan. That covers that one. So at the moment, we have Councillor Oswald suggesting we may defer to certainly see that access road works, tidy up the refuge and other matters. Councillor Higgins would be supporting a refusal, an overturn on this one, and refusal for overdevelopment. James, could you help us a little bit?
Well, the point I was making earlier is if members are happy with the principle of the development of the site and there's a particular unit concerning them, there may be a means through a deferment for officers to address the committee's concern.
What, and remove the unit?
There are ways to move the units around on the site, is the kind of simple point I was trying to make. But if there's a bigger concern, then obviously members will just need to make a decision on it. But if there's a particular unit that's too close to something, then that is something that perhaps could be addressed through a deferment without us having to be in an appeal situation.
Do you think an overdevelopment refusal reason would hold up an appeal?
I'm not quite sure exactly. Is it because of impact on an individual tree? Is it because of impact on a neighbour? Because as Zanab's pointed out, they have ticked all the 15 and 21 metre boxes on this. So I don't think neighbour impact is anywhere we can go with this one.
There's obviously a tree impact on one of the TPOs.
And officers, I think perhaps we did have a slight concern on trees in terms of planning officers, which is why we went back to the tree officer. But obviously the problem with that is when the tree officer then says they're definitely okay with it, then it doesn't take you any further.
Very much, no. Zanab, you indicated you wanted to come back in. You waved at me.
You asked, yes, you asked at one point, you asked the question, is this an overdevelopment of the site? Would it be sustained? If I could just quickly share one slide with you, this one. So something, if you're concerned about overdevelopment, something worth probably noting is that you have a tree which is probably likely to subject to a TPO that is situated on this corner, and you can see its canopy and how it overshadows this amenity space. So in terms of the quality of amenity space, there's a lot of it in the shade. Moving on to this house here, which is the one Councillor Higgins is concerned with. There's a number of trees. They're not actually on the site itself, but along the boundary. And you can see that probably this little area here is not overshadowed. The rest of it is probably going to be under the shadow of a tree. Again, this house here would be under a substantial tree cover here. So the amenity space is going to be overshadowed. So this leaves this middle house with nice access to natural sunlight, and it just might help you make a more informed decision if you understand the amount of tree cover there is in this space where you're looking to reduce the amount of development on site.
So what you're saying is by having all of this development on the site, whilst it ticks the boxes for spacing, a lot of that amenity space isn't going to be the highest quality given that we want to retain those trees.
Yes.
Chairman, what Zainab is perhaps not helping in terms of me getting an approval out of this scheme is she's giving away your best possible grounds to overturn the recommendation were members to go down that direction. Is how I can perhaps summarize what Zainab's just said, Chairman.
Well, no, that's fine, because my sense of members was that a substantial chunk of them that have spoken are looking to not to approve this scheme as it stands. It's a question of whether they'd like a house removed, or whether they just we lose it as overdevelopment tonight and then it comes back in a more acceptable form, which would probably be less houses on the site, because then you get away with the garden issues. Councillor Kaufman, I'll take your comment before I attempt to move this.
Yeah, I was listening to Zainab's commentary on the trees, and when you look at that, the amenity space would almost be useless on three of those houses, so it's not proper amenity space. So I think it's a really, really good argument, that one, for refusal.
Well, let me float something and see what I get. Because I sense where we are, and I'm going to ask the legal officer from commentary in a minute, because it's one of those sort of situations. That the feeling of members seems to be we are not comfortable with this scheme as presented for a number of reasons. We would clearly, if we were going, we wouldn't. I don't think we would approve. I think we'd want to see those highway stuffs and everything else and see that they all really work when you'd see the detail. But there seems to be a strong feeling that this is overdevelopment, i.e. we've squeezed in one too many houses, which then gives you the gardens that don't really work. So if members were minded, would a refusal reason and words to be worked out in a moment, but that this is overdevelopment on the site as it provides 3 of the 4 houses with little usable amenity space, work? Glenn, perhaps you give me a commentary on that.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think this is a very one of those on-balance applications here. But the one thing I would say is that the council is always faced, whenever it refuses anything or disagrees with a developer, it's always faced with an appeal. What strikes me about the decision this evening is there's very genuine views of members here. I can't guarantee we would succeed on an appeal, but it all seems to me the views that have been expressed by all councillors they're properly arguable on appeal there. So nothing the councillors have said causes me any concern in terms of arguing them, but I can't guarantee, though, is of course we'd win on those appeals. But the point about the amenity space seems to me to be stronger, I think, than the overdevelopment, particularly given the distance between the distance and the tree covers that's already been mentioned. But really, these are matters for individual councillors' judgment. Thank you.
Okay. I need someone, Councillor Higgins, perhaps you would frame that into a...
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think we should go down the overdevelopment side. I think that is really thin ice. I mean, if that's the second reason, fine. It's the amenity, it's the effective amenity area, those canopies and the trees, and the effect of, well, obviously the tree officers said it's okay to build on it, but I still think that would be an issue. But as I said, if we took it down to 1 unit and that side only had 2 units instead of 3, then they could share that middle ground where there is good amenity light and stuff like that. So there's my view, and that's the reason I would go for a refusal, if that can be accepted.
So you go for refusal on the basis of lack of usable amenity space?
Yeah, exactly. And we'd say the second part would be overdevelopment, but our main reason would be well,
it is overdevelopment because it generates inappropriate amenity space.
Yeah.
If you take down the quantum of development, you can create the amenity space.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'll second that, Chairman.
Okay, I'm proposing second. Councillor Morgan, I've got you held as indicated. Now you're all right. Zainab, did you want to come back at me?
Apologies, Chairman. Members were speaking earlier about the refuse. Is that still a concern? Is that also going to form part of your reason?
Well, I don't think members are comfortable with the refuge. Either you've got 12,
No, we're not.
or you're going to take it.
We're not, Mr. Chairman.
No, I didn't think you were. Or you want to create new boundaries and get rid of more vegetation. So I think members are not comfortable with refuge either. Do I get that as a general sense? If I can just have some nods, yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, right. I've got lots of thumbs up. So I think that's two potential reasons there. But I think we will need to delegate to the head of planning to work the wordings out. James, you all right with that?
Yeah, I think probably best if the actual final wording is agreed with Chairman and Labour lead.
Fine. Will give me a nod on that. Yes, I have that.
Yeah, so so it's completely transparent, and that we make sure we get it exactly right.
Okay, so we've got essentially, we're not happy with the amenity space. There's too many houses on the site, creates poor amenity space. We're not happy with the refuge arrangements. Those are your two refusal reasons. Councillor Higgins has proposed, Councillor Oswald formally seconded that. So the proposal before you, councillors, is that you refuse the application. So I need to know whether you are for or against refusal of this application, which is an overturn of the officer report. Councillor Higgins was obviously the proposer. Councillor Hagger?
For the refusal, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Kaufman?
For, Chairman.
Councillor Melvin?
Yes, for refusal, Chair.
Councillor Morgan?
For.
Councillor Oswald seconded. Councillor Dott, you were supportive earlier. Are you now supporting the refusal?
After hearing the other issues, I think I'm support the refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Singh?
For, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, that's all councillors voting to refuse this application for the two reasons indicated, with the precise wording to be agreed between myself and the Labour lead. Do you concur, Neil?
I do, Chairman, yes.
Thank you. Right, that's that one done. We now move to item 9 on your list, 17 Woodside Road, Northwood. So now, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sorry. Item 9 relates to 17 Woodside Northwood. The application is for the erection of a 2-storey side extension and a first-floor rear extension to a detached dwelling house located on the northwest side of Woodside Road. The dwelling is a characterful property it comprises a generous front and rear garden. The surrounding area is characterised by single-family dwellings. The case officer has considered this application very closely with the conservation officer, and the resultant development, which is amendment to what was originally submitted, is considered to be a subordinate addition to the main dwelling house. The officer in their report notes that it includes a width of 6.7 metres, which is half of the original ground floor footprint. The extension is set back from the front, the side and the back. The ridge height is 1.3 metres lower than the ridge height of the main dwelling. On that basis, the officer has recommended approval. I will just take members through the presentation. So the site is located within an area of special local character on the Gateshill estate. This is the existing footprint, and this is the area the proposal will be built out into. And this is the proposed footprint, so it's outlined in this faint blue line here. And you'll note that it's set back from the boundary and it's angled away from neighbouring property. So this is a block plan showing the proposed extension. Again, you will note that there is a separation between the two dwellings. and it's angled away. So this is the existing ground floor plan. This is an open porch which is being removed as part of the proposal. And this is the proposed plan outlined in a darker colour here. This is the existing first floor plan, and this is where it is being extended. And proposed roof plan. These are the existing front. This is the existing front elevation, and you will note that there is a side porch which is going to be removed. And the proposed front elevation. There was an amendment to the plan. Initially, it showed a double height glazed elevation treatment here. This has been amended so it's in keeping with the architectural detail across the rest of the house. The proposal will be finished in brick to match the existing house. And there is an addendum item with this application, which refers to the amendment to the plan. So the officer recommendation is for approval, subject to the head of planning making sure the plan numbers are correct. And I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Zainab. Neil, we have a petition on this one. I think we have some applicant comments as well, but I don't think we have anything from the ward councillor.
That's correct, Chairman. So I'm just going to share the slides. This is firstly the submission from the petitioner. Gatehill Residents Association notes the amendments made to the original plan submitted for this application. We have outstanding concerns and ask you to refuse permission for the application. Our first concern: the handout submitted with this note contains 4 extracts from the submitted plans which can be found on the borough's website. These are the side of the house facing number 19. The first is the house as it currently stands. The second is the initial proposal to raise the roof over a section of the house which is not being extended to create a large loft conversion with 5 roof lights and a rear-facing dormer. The third is the final amended version where the roof is still to be raised to create a vast loft space, but the windows and rear dormer have been removed. You will note that in each proposal, the roof-facing neighbour number 19 is to be raised to create a vast loft space. The officer report acknowledges that house number 19 is oriented differently to house number 17, and that this roof enlargement will face their living room and bedroom windows from a distance of around 10 metres. Should you approve the raising of the roof, the applicant will be able to put these side-facing windows into the newly raised roof without requiring planning permission under permitted development rights. The neighbours at number 19 will have their privacy removed, as there will be as many windows as the developer likes facing into the living room and bedrooms from approximately 10 metres away. The officer has proposed a condition that no further windows can be inserted into the walls facing number 15 and number 19. So, we ask that if you are minded to approve, you add a condition which does not allow any windows in the roof facing number 19 to preserve our privacy. Our second concern is the sheer size and scale of the proposal and its intended use. This would be the third extension to the original house, and the resultant property with its double-height glass porch will bear no resemblance to the original house and its layout. We believe the width and depth of this proposal is a manifest overdevelopment of the site, and the enormous, bulky proposed roof shape again bears no correlation to the original property, being totally out of keeping by its over-dominance. The handout shows the proposed roof and elevations from neighbour number 15. Our third concern is there is no condition to prevent the proposed property being subdivided to form additional units or used in multiple occupation. The previous approved and built extension reference reference 29754-app-2008-3569 contains a planning condition that the development hereby approved shall not be subdivided to form additional dwelling units or used in multiple occupation without a further express permission from the local planning authority to ensure that the property remained a single dwelling unit. We ask that if you approve this application, you carry the previous condition over to ensure that this vast property is not subdivided to form additional dwelling units or used as an HMO. Our fourth concern is related to the green sylvan character of the estate, which is such a distinctive, precious and characteristic feature. We ask that if you approve this application, a condition be added to ensure that the boundary treatment remains typical of this area of special local character, complying with policy DMHB 6.3. The boundaries are currently high hedges, no walls or closed board fences are allowed. In conclusion, we believe that this is overdevelopment of the original property. The vast roof is bulky and overdominant for both neighbours and the street scene and will have a negative effect on this area of special local character. The raising of the roof facing number 19 will be detrimental to their privacy, and there is potential for this large property to be subdivided into separate units or used in multiple occupancy. We therefore ask that this permission for this proposal be refused. If, however, you are minded to approve the application, please add conditions so that no roof lights may be added facing number 19. The property may not be subdivided to form additional units or used in HMO. And finally, that the boundary treatment must comply with DMHB 6.3. Thank you. We then have a submission from the applicant, prepared by the architect. Thanks to the planning development for their input in this process. Councillors will be aware that a pre-app was submitted for this application and, based on the planner's feedback, the current submission has omitted the following: second floor loft space accommodation, a raised ridge height to the apex of the main roof, 2 half octagon bay windows, a crown roof over the extended part of the property, a projecting canopy over the proposed new front entrance, a reduction in the width of the extension from 7.5 metres to 6.7 metres. More recently, the design of the front facade has been modified to allow for a single-storey window over the entrance and not a 2-storey feature as before. We believe that these alterations address all of the points raised by the planners in their pre-app report. There are 3 points addressed here in more detail, which are the GRA's assertions that the ratio of the width of the proposed extension to the house is more than 50%. The depth of the proposed extension is 6 metres beyond the original house and does not respect the original building lines. And the design of the front facade breaches policy DMHD 1D.2 vis-a-vis porch design and is not subordinate as per DBMH 5A and B. Regarding the width of the extension, DMHD 1C 1 states that side extension should not exceed half the width of the original property. The key word is property. The GRA has wrongly construed property to mean house. It will be noted that as part of the original design of the property, there was an attached brick-built garage to the right-hand side of the house, as shown in Exhibit 1. Dimensionally, the original width of the property is 13.4 metres, and the proposed extension is 6.7 metres. The ratio of the proposed extension is 50%. Regarding the depth and extension of the building lines, the GRA states that the current proposal is to extend at the rear 6 metres beyond the original house. However, as shown in Exhibit 2 below, this is also incorrect. The proposed extension is level with the rear of the original house and does not project beyond it. The image also shows that no existing building lines pertaining to the subject property are broken, see the blue lines, nor is the rear building line of number 15 breached, see the rear red line. Regarding facade design, the GRA asserts the proposed extension is out of character with the streetscape, both in terms of the proposed choice of building materials and in its size and form. The building materials are stated to match existing, so this first point is incorrect. Compared to the original scheme at pre-app, the large area of crown roof has been omitted, and in its place 2 hipped roofs have been inserted, with a traditional valley gutter in between. The height of this roof is 1.3 metres lower than the main roof apex, and as stated previously, the original proposal to raise the height of the main apex in order to make loft-level accommodation viable was also discounted. Moreover, a 2-storey window over the entrance has been omitted. It will be noted that many of the properties on Woodside Road have already been heavily extended, and a more detailed analysis of this can be seen in the design and access statement. The juxtaposition of the subject property vis-a-vis number 15 is demonstrated in Exhibit 3. In terms of proportions, this analysis demonstrates that the host property and proposed extension is compatible and commensurate with its neighbour, with the gap between the 2 properties being more than 8 metres apart. Closing comments. One of the main reasons that the applicant is undertaking this project is to enable his disabled septuagenarian father to live with the rest of his property in the same house. He needs 24-hour care and for all his accommodation to be on the ground floor. This need is provided for in the Local Plan Part 2 under section A1.17, which calls for annexes designed specifically for the use of disabled or dependent elderly family members, located on the ground floor and be fully accessible. Council should be aware that the applicants offered to meet a representative of the GRA to discuss this proposal, and unfortunately this offer was declined. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Morgan, do you want to start me off on this one?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
You next.
I know this area very well, and I do have a few concerns, but I think that the proposals from the petitioners in having some conditions put into the plans would perhaps go a long way. But if we look at the proposed first floor plan, towards the back we have called Nimmy's bedroom and a prayer room, and they're both opening out onto a flat roof. I didn't see anything in the plans to say that we should not be using this flat roof for any purpose other than as a roof. So we need something in the conditions for that, and together with the condition that permitted development rights are removed. Thank you.
Councillor, if you look at page 67, condition 8, I think satisfies your roof garden concern. I'll pick up the PD one in a moment. Councillor Higgins, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, we had this application back in last year in May, and I think it was up for refusal, if officers confirm that with me. I just want to know what the difference is between that and this. It was like, obviously my memory is not that good, but I think there would be. I don't think there's much of a difference. So if officers can confirm on that, please.
I think that one was withdrawn.
Yeah, I know, but it was up for refusal.
You think it was a refusal?
It was up for refusal. I'm sure that it was. I'm not 100%, but I'm sure that it was up for refusal. That's why they withdrew it.
Okay.
I don't know what the difference was between the two now, because I do find that I don't have any problem with most of it. It's that roof that is a problem. That most of the other properties, they go up a little bit and it comes down and then levels off, which is great. And they've just infilled that whole bit, which makes it more of to me, an over-development. And I think what the petitioner said, those things to add to it wouldn't be so bad, to be honest. But I just want to confirm what the difference was, please.
Okay, no, a valid question, Councillor. Zanab, can you shed some light on what's the difference between the 31st of May 2019 withdrawn application and the one we're considering tonight?
I can come in on this. I don't believe we've got a plan of the previous withdrawn proposal, but what I do know, and Councillor Higgins will be saying I'm ducking the question, but it is very relevant, is that before this proposal was submitted, the council's conservation officer effectively went point by point through this planning submission that's before you. And that I do know as a fact, and that I would hope would give the committee a lot of comfort in terms of the recommendation that this isn't an application as any hidden on balances. This is one that the conservation officers work with the applicant, and the conservation officers happy with the scheme. But I'd be wary trying to answer directly Councillor Higgins' questions, because I know we don't have any extra plans to share.
Councillor Higgins, do you want to come back?
Thank you, James. You never duck any questions. You always answer them perfectly. So don't get a thing about that. No, I mean, it's that roof line, James. I mean, our office is really happy with that. The fact that that infill. And I mean, and officers, are they happy to add some of those conditions?
Well, yeah, I'm going to come to officers for that in a moment. James, do you want to take that, or do you want Nab to do it?
I can actually do both questions. I've had a look at the plans for the previous application, and I can confirm categorically that there's a huge difference between what was previously proposed and what we have before us today. The previous application included huge hexagonal bays on both the you've got the existing house. I'll just bring up a photograph of it and share it with you. But it was going to actually replicate this, but in a very uncharacteristic way on where the site was being extended. This application, and there was no setback, and it was in line with the ridge height of the existing house, whereas this application, there is a setback. So this is the bay it was going to replicate. There wasn't any setback. It was in line with the roof there. It was a lot, and in terms of its materiality and its treatment as well, it was quite modern, particularly to the rear. This is a lot more sympathetic. They've worked very closely with the conservation officer, who has looked at this, as James has said, and says this is an acceptable proposal. With regards to your point on permitted development, condition 7 already revokes permitted development rights, so that there are no additional doors and windows. But if you want to strengthen it so it's very clearly stated, we could do that and add a condition that very clearly states various permitted development rights are removed, so that we retain the character, and anything else the applicant would like to add here has to be done through a planning application.
So Nab, that's very helpful. Councillor Morgan likes that. Can I just ask about two more things whilst you're on? The GRA addressed the question whether this can be subdivided. I know permission is normally required to be subdivided, and that's not normally a condition we add these days. Am I right?
Chairman, if I can comment now, they require a separate planning application if they're going to start splitting it into separate units. So we wouldn't impose a condition because it needs planning permission in any case. I think the point Councillor Higgins may be alluding to, in terms of the permitted development, is that ensuring they can't do further extensions without planning permission. So in terms of what permitted development we'd be withdrawing, it would be extensions, is what I'm assuming.
We haven't taken off additional windows and doors.
So yeah, so we've taken on additional windows and doors. I think Councillor Higgins was alluding to further extensions, and we do have a standard condition that if committee think it's appropriate, that can be added, that ensures no further extensions. I wouldn't say it would be fair to go beyond that and start trying to take away porches or outbuildings or anything, because it would then be difficult to argue why this property when other people have permitted development rights. But you could perhaps argue on the extensions that there's a big extension, we don't want any further extensions added to the big extension without them coming to the planning authority.
Okay, James, one final question. I know this is a single house, we don't normally impose landscaping. The GRA are raising questions as to whether a landscaping condition should be imposed to ensure the landscaping at the front does match up with the rest of the road. Is that acceptable?
My understanding is they aren't altering the driveway. So we've had this issue that applicants sometimes in the Gatehill estate, they're not just doing extensions, they're altering the driveway, but we haven't got anything indicating that on the plan. So I'm not sure there's actually a need for a landscaping condition.
Councillor Higgins, you wanted to come back at us?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, yes, James, you've actually got it spot on. I don't want any more extensions on here. Outbuildings reasonable. Greenhouses, stuff like that's not a real problem. I think they were more concerned on the boundary line though, through you, Chairman, that make sure that sort of vegetation was kept. I mean, can you, through you,
There is extensive work being done along the side of the property. I mean, I think it would be. Do you think given that this is a particularly nice part of Borough, would it safeguard us just in case they do something different? So now, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Condition 9 would take care of that, because condition 9 requires trees, hedges, shrubs to be retained. So on that,
and condition 10, Chairman.
yes.
Okay, so we've got 9 and 10, which covers existing. So that probably does take care of it. Yeah. So I've got no other hands on this one at the moment. So where we are at the moment is that we would be seeking an additional condition that there are no extensions permitted, and we'd be seeking condition 7 to be explicit that dormers, roof lights, whatever, are not permitted. I know it's implied, but to be absolutely clear that we are taking that away. Yes, Councillor Oswald's indicated, but that's the only person so far indicating at me. Yeah, Councillor Oswald, then Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, I just it's funny that I was just reading condition 9, but anyway, Chairman, look, I think with those conditions and what we've been told, I think that we could go ahead and approve this application, and I'll recommend officer's recommendation. I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Oswald. Councillor Higgins.
I'll second that, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, so we are proposed and seconded with the delegation to the head of planning to add a condition and amend condition 7. So all those voting, so we're voting in favour of approval of the application subject to changes that we've made. Councillor Hagger?
Yes, Chair, for subject to changes.
Councillor Kaufman?
For, Chairman, subject to changes.
Councillor Melvin?
Yes, for, Chairman, subject to changes.
Councillor Morgan?
For, Mr. Chairman, subject to changes.
Thank you. Councillor Dott?
For, Chairman, subject to changes. Thank you.
And Councillor Singh?
For, Chairman, for subject to changes.
Okay. That's all members have either proposed or seconded or voted in favour. So that one is approved subject to the changes we listed. Do you agree, Neil?
Agree, Chairman.
I now move to agenda item 10, the last of your petitions, land at Garage Block, Southbourne Gardens. So now, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to present my screen. Okay, item 10 relates to land at Garage Block at Southbourne Gardens. This application seeks to demolish 2 garage blocks, which are here indicated. They're accessed via Southbourne Gardens. They comprise 18 garages, and the proposal seeks to provide a 4-storey building providing 8 2-bedroom flats with associated landscaping and car parking. If I just take you through the proposal, it's in a car parking, it's an area subject to parking management scheme. Here's an existing site plan of the garages, and this is the proposed site plan showing a distance between neighbouring property and the proposed block. The car parking spaces are sited at the front. Refuse store is situated here, and there's a collection point situated to the south. Amenity spaces, there are 2 private amenity spaces and communal amenity space. The proposal provides 8 2-bedroom flats, and this is the treatment of the elevation. There's something strange going on the north elevation where half the door is blocked up by bricks. This is a bird's eye view of the site. This is the entrance into the site. The pathway leading into the site, the garages, and a view looking out into neighbouring properties, and you will note that there are just 3-storey properties surrounding the site. So even these flatted developments, they're 3 stories in height. The application is for a 4-storey building. There is no objection in principle to the redevelopment of the site because a scheme for 6 flats has already been allowed. However, the layout, scale, design is an uncharacteristic form of development in the site's context. The 4-storey height would be completely out of keeping within the surrounding area, which is a mixture of 2- and 3-storey buildings. And the additional story is too bulky. So for the reasons set out in the officer's report, this application is recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Zanab. Neil, would you read the petitioners?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So no slides in this one, just one written submission from the petitioner. So, Mr. Chairman and councillors, I have submitted this statement on behalf of 39 residents from all the roads surrounding the site of the application. We are objecting to the size of the proposed development. The properties surrounding the site are traditional 2-storey houses and maisonettes. This proposal would create a building that would overshadow all of its neighbours. The residents of the upper floor of the new development would have a clear view into surrounding properties, as they would be some way above the remaining trees around the site. This would result in a loss of privacy for many of the neighbouring properties, I should say. Residents in Dollis Crescent would lose much of their early morning sunlight due to the height of the building. Those in Green Lawns would be similarly affected in the evening. This would be particularly noticeable during the winter months. We noticed that the applicant has not submitted an updated daylight and sunlight assessment with this application. Residents in Dollis Crescent face the prospect of having a large brick wall at the end of their gardens that would tower over the existing fences. The style of the building is out of keeping with its surroundings. The provision of an extra story would draw attention to the building, spoiling the appearance of the area. During the current pandemic, many of us have noticed the pleasant panorama looking north from Cavendish playing fields. Should this development go ahead, it will stick out like a sore thumb, spoiling the view. The addition of another 2 double-bedroom units to the development will add to what is already a crowded development. We note that there will not be additional parking provided on site. These 2 extra units could result in an extra 3 or 4 vehicles looking for places to park. Parking is at a premium in the area, especially for residents of Dollis Crescent. It is not only residents that will generate extra traffic and parking. The provision of 2 extra units would generate additional visitors and deliveries to the development. South Point Gardens is already a busy road, especially during morning and evening peaks. It is used as an alternative route between Royston Manor and Eastcote, avoiding both town centre traffic lights. The access to the site will always be a safety issue. During construction, there have been 2 minor collisions in front of the site entrance. Lorries delivering supplies to the site have damaged pavements. In one case, the pavement had recently been repaired by the council. The paving slabs have now been cracked by lorries using the pavement to gain access to the site. Refuse collection will be a bigger issue with the provision of 2 extra units. If rubbish is deposited at the end of the access road awaiting collection, this will either be left in the narrow access road, restricting this even further, or more likely obstructing the pavement which is used by the many children en route to Newham School. We notice that there is no provision for any extra amenity space on the site, and that this falls short of the requirement of planning policies. We have in recent years had a large number of developments of flats in Eastcote, Palmyra House, the London Square development, the Solace and Luna developments. The Keeler House and Malt House developments are currently under construction. Do we really need to squeeze an additional 2 units on this site? In summary, we believe this application will result in the overdevelopment of the site, spoiling the area for all of the residents, and we urge you to reject it. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Back to you.
Thank you, Neil, for that. The officer report on this one is for refusal. Before I start out, is anybody going to argue against that? Anybody going to? No, nobody arguing against that. I'll take Councillor Kaufman as the first hand I saw.
Chairman, Councillor Oswald was indicating.
Yeah, I know. I've got Councillor Oswald and Councillor Morgan, but I just wanted.
Thank you, Chairman. That was a really good report. That building is totally over-dominant, lack of a proper amenity space. It sticks out like a sore thumb. And as the residents said in their submission, we've got more flats in about a mile away than you could shake a stick at. Why do we need this building? I propose that we go for refusal on this, along with officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Kaufman. I'll take Councillor Oswald.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. That's what I was going to do. So I'm happy to second it.
Okay, I am proposed and seconded. No other hands, or the hands that had indicated, have all given up. They're all going to do the same thing, I think. So we are proposed and seconded that we support officer recommendations for refusal. So can you tell me whether you are for officer recommendations or against? Councillor Higgins?
For.
Councillor Hagger?
For.
Councillor Kaufman was a proposer. Councillor Melvin?
For, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan?
For.
Councillor Oswald was a seconder. Councillor Dott?
For, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Singh?
For, Chairman.
That's all councillors have voted in favour of refusal, so that one is refused. You confirm, Neil?
I agree, Chairman.
Right, we move to agenda item 11, which is telecommunications equipment at Hume Way. Rice slips and now, please.
Thank you, Chair. Item 11 relates to Hume Way rice slip. The application is for telecommunications equipment. It involves a replacement of existing equipment, which it measures around 13 meters, to a 20-meter high monopole with 12 antennas and associated equipment cabinets. The existing equipment will be removed. The mast is situated, so if I just take you through the proposal. This is the existing site, and this is where they're proposing to locate the telecommunications equipment to. So it's going to be higher, larger, although doesn't benefit from any designations. It's going to be higher, it's going to be larger, and it will dominate this space. So on that basis, the officer has recommended refusal. So this is the existing site plan. Shows the equipment there, and this is the removal of the equipment. And this is showing the proposed location of the new equipment. This is the existing elevation, and it's showing where equipment is going to be removed. And this is the proposal, which is located to the west of the site. This is the services plan, the access plan to the equipment, the location of a cherry picker, and then this is showing us radio frequency compliance information, and this is of the proposed. This is showing the existing radio frequency compliance elevation, and this is the proposed radio frequency. A bird's eye view of the site, and this is the existing equipment. You can see there's already quite a few cabinets, and this is where it's sited, and this is the proposed location of the equipment. It will be situated outside this house here, along the verge here, and it's considered to be out of keeping with the area, and it will dominate the street scene. So because of those reasons, the application has been recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hagger, you were the first hand I saw, and then I saw Councillor Morgan, and then I've got a number of others. Just let me take Councillor Hagger first.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I support officers' recommendations for refusal. It's a built-up area. I know it well. It's on my plot. Definitely much larger, 13 to 20 metres. And it's right next to the school as well. The school isn't far from that. So it's a no-brainer, really. Support officer recommendations for refusal.
Good. I'll take that as a proposal. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. But you're not going to get much from me. I'm going to second that proposal.
Okay. The rest who indicate you want to add anything else, Councillor Higgins.
Yeah. Is there any chance that we can do something with that, where the existing one is? That some of that is all that those cabinets actually used, or can they be removed? Some of them.
Probably outside our remit tonight, I'm guessing. James, do you want a quick comment? It's outside our remit, I think.
Yeah, we unfortunately with these masks, the operators don't tend to engage with us much, and we just need to make a determination on whether the site where they're putting forward we think is a suitable location. As Zanab pointed out, I mean, it's two-story housing. It's quite a 20-meter mast of this particular location is going to really be a very prominent addition to the street scene.
Okay, I am proposed and seconded. I've got no other hands desiring to come in. So in that case, can I, again, we are voting for the officer report, which is to refuse this application. So Councillor Higgins?
For, Chairman.
Councillor Hager proposed. Councillor Kaufman?
For, Chairman.
Councillor Melvin?
For, Chairman.
Councillor Morgan seconded. Councillor Oswald?
For, Chairman.
Councillor Dott?
For, Chairman.
Councillor Singh? Councillor Singh? Neil, can you see Councillor Singh on your?
No, he appears to have dropped off, Chairman.
Okay, so we'll 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 7 voting in favour of the officer report for refusal. 1 councillor has dropped, so that one is refused. Neil, yeah.
Yep, confirmed, Chairman.
Confirmed. Good. I move to agenda item 12, which is Waybirds Farm, Primrose Cottage, Hill End Road, Harefield. Zanab, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So item 12 relates to Waybirds Farm, or Waybirds Farm. The application seeks to convert an existing barn, which is used as a storage area here. So it's access through off Springwell Lane, and there's a lane leading to it. It's currently houses a storage area, and there's been an infill extension. So I'll just walk members through the proposal. It's situated within the green belt, and they've provided an existing site survey which shows that the existing building, outlined in orange, is a substantial structure. So it is a conversion and it's not a rebuild. And as part of that, this infill element, which isn't a substantial structure, will be removed. So this is the proposed layout. When application was submitted, it was amended during the course of the application to provide a buffer. Here, initially, there were car parking spaces within the courtyard. This has been amended, so there's an open aspect. This area here is already features hard standing. There's already existing hard standing, so that's just making use of the area to provide the 4 car parking spaces. Each unit will benefit from a garage. It's all single story within the footprint. There's no increase to the ridge height or to the height at all. There's just some insertions of windows and doors. As you can see from the layout, each unit will benefit from some greening within the courtyard to maintain the privacy of those habitable rooms facing onto the courtyard. Each unit will be benefit from private amenity space. Where there is an existing menage, that will be removed and replaced with grass, therefore contributing to the openness of the green belt. So this is the site location plan. Right. This is the proposed ground floor plan, which shows the layout of each unit. Each unit will benefit from a dual aspect. These are the existing elevations, and you can see this infill element here will be removed, opening, and this will become a courtyard. These are proposed elevations. The conservation officer has looked at this building and the proposal and requested amendments to doors and windows, so it's in keeping with the barn-like character of the existing building. And that's some more elevations for you. The vehicle swept path analysis shows that a refuse lorry can turn within the site, and that's been found acceptable. So this is a bird's eye view of the site, and this is the existing infill element within the barn structure, and this is the barn structure, so you can see it's quite substantial. A photograph of the inside, and this is the menage photograph from the outside. So this menage will be removed and this will be restored to grass and open landscape. This is the menage again that is being removed. This is the outside of the barn that's being converted. Another angle of that view. And then this is some of the clutter that will be removed when this barn is converted. And the area of hard standing you can see is there's already a working area of hard standing around. So the application is considered appropriate development in the green belt. It benefits from the exceptions in the NPPF. The setting of the site, the openness of the site will be improved, and the development complies with the relevant local plan. So on that basis, officers recommend approval. There is an addendum item on this which adds a condition requiring car parking management because there's an area of courtyard parking proposed, so that works in practice. On that basis, we recommend approval, and I'll take any questions, Chair.
Janab, can I just confirm your presentation referred to 4 car parking spaces? There are actually 8 on this, aren't there? 2 per unit.
That is correct. So if I just flick back to that site.
That's fine. It's 4 on the road and 4 in the courtyard.
Yes, that's correct. No, not in the courtyard, 4 in garages. Okay. So there are 4 individual garages.
Okay. But it is 8 car parking spaces.
It is 8 car parking spaces.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think it's a nice development. At least we can get access for refuge. On balance, it's good. I mean, we have taken away the right to change those garages into habitable rooms, haven't we? So, yeah, I think so. Where do I see it? Apart from that, I'll go. Yeah, that's it. I'll go with officer recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, I've got Councillor Morgan and Councillor Melvin, followed by Councillor Oswald. So Councillor Morgan first. No, you didn't indicate, right? Councillor Melvin.
No, I was just going to second Councillor Higgins' proposal.
Well, I'll take a seconder. I'll always take that.
That's me. Yes, I'm very happy with it. I think it's a lovely development.
Good, Councillor Oswald. Did you want?
No, it's all right. All right, Chairman. It's all done.
Good. I'm
sorry, Chairman, was Councillor Higgins suggesting we add an extra condition on in terms of the garages?
Yes, I was, James, but I thought, isn't there something in the report?
Does condition 6
cover it
or not? Because that's the only one about outbuildings extension.
No. We do have a standard condition, and it's not currently in the report, that says garages can't be converted to additional living accommodation without the prior planning application. So as long as we're concerned at the prospect of all the garages being converted to extra living accommodation,
I would suggest we add that.
Which is a valid concern. So it is something we have a standard condition to cover. So I'd be quite happy it being added as an extra condition, Chairman. That's why I was interrupting.
No, thank you very much for that, James. The nods I'm getting suggest member agreement to that. So we are proposed and seconded, subject to adding the standard condition that garages can't be converted. Okay, so that's what you're voting on. You're voting in favour of the officer recommendation. Councillor Hagger?
For, Chair.
Councillor Kaufman?
For, including conditions, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan?
For.
Councillor Oswald?
Yes, for.
Thank you. Councillor Dott?
For Chairman.
And Councillor Singh.
For Chairman.
That's all members voting in favour with the additional condition. Do you agree, Neil?
Agreed, Chairman.
Thank you. Agenda item 13, which is another telephone mast, this time in Long Lane Farm, Long Lane.
Thank you, Chair. Item 13 relates to Long Lane Farm. The application is for additional equipment on an existing lattice tower. So I'll just talk you through the proposal. This is the site location. It's within the green belt, but it's on an existing tower. So this is a site location showing how the site is accessed, and a block plan of the area the equipment is proposed to be sited in. So here's a plan of the existing site, and what it shows is that there's no external additional equipment being added because it's utilizing existing equipment. This is the existing lattice tower, and the red on the proposed elevation shows where the addition is being added. The addition is approximately 1.3 meters in height. The officer considers the proposal would have no greater impact on the openness of the greenbelt, given where it's sited and the equipment that's already there. On that basis, the officers are recommending approval for this application. I'll just show you a photograph of the existing tower, and I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Thank you, Zainab. It looks fairly straightforward, I would suggest. Councillor Morgan, followed by Councillor Oswald.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to propose we go with officers' recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Oswald?
Yeah, I'll second that, Chairman, but could I just raise again, please, that I see that the cabinets are going to be used again, I think, or upgraded. Can I just add again the maintenance of the cabinets, please, so they don't, when they start to look scruffy, they actually do something about them. Thank you, Chairman.
Hopefully, I think we have limited powers, but yeah, I think we note. Okay, let's work down. Let's work.
Sorry,
apologies on this one.
Chairman, sorry to interrupt again. There was a very long debate at Central and South Committee recently regarding conditions that should be added to telecom applications. Do committee want me to add to the conditions that were debated for about half an hour, which I think Councillor Oswald was alluding to this application? I think delegate that to me. I can ensure that all the conditions that are extensively debated at Central and South can be added to this application.
Yes, Councillor Oswald, was that what you were referring to?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, look, I mean, at the end of the day, this is street furniture, so it really should look, you know, half decent, I think. We have nice street furniture that we supply ourselves with. I've said this before, with some really nice street benches, and yet we've got these tatty cabinets that are 8, 9, 10 years old that really need looking at and redecorating and having something done with them. And,
okay, well,
they've had
this
this
condition that helps that process. James, you're happy to do that?
Yeah. There was a very useful session at Central and South where we went through all the wording of some of the conditions and how they could be improved. And if members are happy to delegate that I sort out the conditions, I can enhance the planning conditions. And I'm pretty confident I can address
what we've got, what we end up with, James. I think all members will go with that. My apologies when I do the running order for this one. The sheet I've got has is not the correct one, so I'm going to have to do it from the agenda name. So I'll be calling in a different order to what I've done all night. So Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, 4.
Councillor Dott.
4, Chairman.
Councillor Hagger.
4, Chair.
Councillor Melvin.
4, Chairman.
Councillor Oswald was a seconder. Councillor Melvin was a proposer. Councillor Kaufman.
4, Chairman.
Councillor Singh.
4, Chairman.
Thank you. That one is approved. all members in favour? Do you agree, Neil?
Agree, Chairman.
Okay, can I now ask that Democratic Services confirm to me the recording and live stream is off before I move into part 2?
Thank you, Chairman. If members just stand by while I ensure that all the broadcasting is stopped.